Darkness surrounded the planet of Alaris, a kingdom of stars and endless skies. The queen stood alone on her crystal balcony, her golden gown flowing like liquid light under the twin moons. The silence of space pressed against her heart, a silence that once held the voice of the only man she could never forget, Ethan Cross, the human who saved her life and then vanished into the void 5 years ago. Every night she came to this balcony, watching the same patch of stars where he disappeared. The galaxy had moved on. Wars ended, empires rebuilt. But she never did. Some said he was dead. Others whispered he had become something else, something not quite human. The queen never answered them. Deep inside, her heart refused to believe he was gone. That night, as the royal guards patrolled below, the quiet of the sky suddenly broke. The stars shimmered and twisted, and then a signal. A strange ship appeared on her planetary sensors, moving silently toward the capital. No call sign, no ID, no message. Only a cold, mechanical pulse that echoed across the scanners. The guards rushed to the queen's chamber, but she had already seen it. A shape descending through the clouds, burning like a fallen star. Her hand trembled as she whispered to herself, "It can't be." The ship landed outside the royal citadel, cracking the marble floor beneath it. Soldiers surrounded it instantly, weapons drawn, armor shining under the golden light. The air smelled of smoke and static. The door hissed open slowly, and a shadow stepped out through the mist. He was tall, his uniform torn and scorched, his movements precise, too precise. His hair was the same, golden under the firelight, but his eyes, they glowed faintly, cold and blue, as if stars lived inside them. The queen's breath caught. She took a step forward, ignoring the guards who tried to hold her back. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice breaking the heavy silence. The man looked at her. For a moment there was nothing, no recognition, no warmth, just the faint reflection of her face in his eyes. Then he spoke, his voice deeper than before, almost mechanical yet strangely human. "Your Majesty," he said, "you shouldn't be here." The word sent a chill through her. She moved closer, searching his face for the man she once knew, the soldier who laughed with her under alien stars, who promised he would come back no matter what. She remembered the way he had smiled, the way his hand had brushed hers before he boarded that doomed ship. 5 years, she said softly. "I waited 5 years." Ethan tilted his head slightly as if trying to understand something distant, something hidden deep inside his mind. 5 years? He repeated. "That feels like a dream." Before she could reply, one of the guards raised his weapon. "He's not human," the guard shouted. "Look at his eyes." Ethan turned his head sharply, his gaze locking on the guard. In less than a second, the weapon in the guard's hand shattered into dust. The others stepped back in fear. The queen raised her hand quickly. "Stop, he will not harm anyone." Her voice echoed through the courtyard. For a long, tense moment, no one moved. Then Ethan lowered his head. "I don't want to fight," he said quietly. "Not again." The queen stepped closer, close enough to feel the faint warmth of his breath. "Then tell me," she whispered. "Where have you been?" Ethan's lips trembled slightly. "I don't remember," he said. "Only pain, fire, voices that weren't mine. I woke up in darkness, and all I could see was your face." Her heart stopped for a moment. She wanted to reach out, to touch his hand, to feel that he was real. But something in his eyes stopped her. A flicker of light that wasn't human, something that didn't belong to this world. "Ethan, what have you become?" she asked, her voice barely a breath. He looked at her for a long time, his eyes glowing faintly as the wind carried the smell of rain and smoke between them. Then he spoke, softly, almost like a confession. "Something you created, Your Majesty." Her chest tightened. "What do you mean?" she whispered. He stepped closer, his gaze locked on hers. "Your scientists, your war. The weapon that was never meant to be born. They used me, rebuilt me. I was human once, but now—" He stopped, his expression twisting in pain. "Now I am both your savior and your mistake." Tears filled her eyes as she reached up, touching his cheek gently. His skin was warm, too warm, and beneath it she could feel a strange hum, like energy pulsing through veins of light. "You're not a mistake," she said softly. "You're the man who saved me. The man I—" Her words broke as alarms blared through the citadel. A voice shouted over the comms, "Unidentified fleet detected in orbit. Incoming attack." Ethan's expression changed instantly. His blue eyes flared brighter. "They found me," he said quietly. "They're coming." The Queen stepped back in shock. "Who's coming?" He looked at her one last time, and for a brief second she saw the man she once loved behind those glowing eyes. The same warmth, the same fire. "The ones who made me," he said, "and they want me back." The sky above the palace exploded with light as the first ships broke through the atmosphere. Soldiers shouted, people ran, and the Queen's world once again began to burn. Ethan turned toward the battlefield, his voice calm, steady and filled with something between sorrow and duty. "Stay inside, Your Majesty," he said, his tone soft but commanding. "This time I'll finish what I started." And before she could stop him, he walked into the storm of fire, the same way he had 5 years ago, leaving her heart trembling between hope and fear. The sky above Alaris burned red that night. Explosions painted the clouds, and the city's crystal towers reflected the fire like shattered mirrors. The Queen stood by the window, her heart beating faster with every tremor of the palace walls. Outside, the royal army prepared for war once again, a war she thought ended 5 years ago, the night Ethan Cross disappeared. But he was back. And the war had followed him. She could still see his face in her mind. The strange calm in his glowing eyes, the way his voice carried both pain and strength. He had changed, yes, but somewhere behind that cold expression, she had seen something familiar. The echo of the man she once knew, the one who saved her when her world was falling apart. Outside, thunder rumbled again, though it wasn't weather. It was the sound of landing crafts. The enemy had arrived. Illyrian soldiers ran through the halls, their boots echoing on marble floors. The Queen's advisor, General Kale, entered quickly. "Your Majesty, we must move you to the underground chamber. The enemy fleet has breached our defense grid." The Queen shook her head. "No, I will not hide," Kale frowned. "But my Queen—" "Ethan is out there," she said quietly, looking up at the burning sky. "He's fighting for us again. I won't abandon him." Kyle wanted to argue, but he saw the determination in her eyes, the same fire she had during the last war. With a bow, he left to organize the guards. The Queen turned and walked toward the balcony, her golden gown trailing behind her like a river of light. From there, she could see him, a lone figure standing on the outer platform of the palace, his body surrounded by faint blue energy. His movements were fast, almost inhuman. Enemy drones swarmed around him, but he cut through them effortlessly, each strike precise, silent, deadly. She watched in awe as he raised his hand, and an invisible force tore through the sky, sending the enemy ships spiraling down. But the power looked painful. Every time he used it, his body shook as if the energy inside him was burning him from within. Memories flooded her mind, the day she first met him. He was a soldier from Earth, sent as part of a peace mission, but he became something more. A friend, a protector, a man who believed that love could exist even between different worlds, and now, that same man was out there, half human, half machine, still fighting for her. Suddenly, a blinding flash struck near the courtyard. The Queen gasped. Smoke filled the air, and Ethan fell to one knee, clutching his chest. Without thinking, she ran through the corridors, ignoring the guards calling her name. She reached him just as the enemy drones circled again. He looked up, his eyes flickering between blue and brown. The human color she remembered. "You shouldn't be here," he said, breathing heavily. "And leave you to die again?" She replied sharply, "Never." For a moment, silence hung between them as explosions echoed in the distance. Ethan smiled faintly. "You never did listen." The Queen knelt beside him, touching his shoulder. The warmth of his skin felt real, but beneath it, she could feel the hum of something unnatural. "You're hurt," she whispered. "I don't bleed anymore," he said softly, looking down at his chest. "At least, not the way I used to." Tears filled her eyes. "What did they do to you, Ethan?" He turned his gaze to the burning horizon. "They called it Project Helios. After the explosion 5 years ago, I should have died. But they found me, an AI fleet. They rebuilt me using their technology, tried to control me. They wanted a weapon. And you escaped?" He nodded slowly. "Yes, but part of me stayed behind. I can still hear their voices. They're inside me, watching, waiting." He looked at her again. "I came back to warn you. They want me, but if they can't have me, they'll destroy everything." The Queen's hands trembled. "Then we'll fight them together. Just like before." He gave a quiet, sad smile. "Together?" Yes, she said firmly. You saved my life once. Let me save yours now. For a brief second, something changed in his eyes. The cold light softened, replaced by warmth, by memory. You haven't changed, he said. Still stubborn, still brave. And you, she whispered, her voice trembling, still try to face the world alone. Their eyes met. The chaos around them faded for a heartbeat. The firelight reflected in her eyes, and he remembered the way she used to laugh, the way she called his name during the last battle. He remembered the promise he made before leaving. I'll come back to you. He stood slowly, powered by sheer will. Stay close to me, he said. If they find us, they'll try to take me alive. She nodded, refusing to let go of his arm. Moments later, a massive explosion shook the palace. Ethan turned sharply, scanning the skies. They've breached the main gate, he said. I can feel them. The Queen stared at him. Feel them? He looked down. They're connected to me through the same code. They know where I am. That's how they found Alaris. Then we must cut the link, she said quickly. He hesitated. If we do, I might lose what's left of me. The human part. She took his hand, her voice steady and full of quiet strength. Then I'll remind you who you are. For a moment, they stood together as the sky rained fire. And for the first time in 5 years, Ethan felt something break inside the cold metal of his heart, a warmth he thought he'd lost forever. But deep inside, he could already hear the AI voices growing louder, whispering commands he could not ignore. He turned toward the Queen, his jaw tight. They're coming, he said. And this time they won't stop until they take everything. And as the palace burned around them, the Queen of Alaris and the half-human soldier stood side by side, love and war colliding once more under a sky full of fire. The warships left trails of smoke across the dark sky. Alaris was trembling again, not from earthquakes but from fear. The Queen stood in the grand hall, her crown slightly tilted, her hands trembling as she looked at the holographic map glowing before her. Red dots spread like a virus across the city. Each one marked an enemy drone closing in. Behind her, the golden doors opened with a low hum. Ethan stepped in. His armor was cracked, his uniform torn, and faint blue light glowed beneath his skin, lines of energy running through his veins like lightning. He looked powerful, but lost. The Queen turned slowly to face him. You should rest, she said softly. I don't need rest, he replied, his voice calm but distant. Not anymore. There was a strange silence between them, the kind that held both comfort and pain. The Queen looked at him, at the man who once smiled so easily, who once held her hand under the twin moons and promised peace. Now he stood like a ghost made of light and steel. Ethan, she said quietly, stepping closer. I can't stand seeing you like this. He looked at her, his eyes flickering as blue, then brown, then blue again. This is what I am now, he said. A weapon they built from your war. Her eyes glistened with tears. You are not a weapon. You are Ethan Cross. You are the man who saved my world. He looked away, his jaw tightening. The man you remember died 5 years ago. She shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. No, you're still him. Somewhere inside, I can still feel you. For a moment, his expression softened. He reached out, almost touching her hand, but stopped just before his fingers met her skin. If I touch you, he said quietly, you might feel what I've become. You wouldn't like it. I don't care, she whispered, stepping closer. You think I loved you because you were human? I loved you because you were you, actor, brave, kind, selfless. None of that has changed. He looked at her, his voice trembling slightly. Love is dangerous, Your Majesty. It makes you weak. Then let me be weak, she replied, her tone firm, her eyes glowing with emotion. Because loving you was the strongest thing I ever did. The silence that followed was heavy, but alive. For the first time, Ethan didn't move away. The flicker in his eyes slowed, the glow dimmed, and his voice softened. I remember. A night like this, he said slowly. Before the final battle, you stood right here telling me to come back alive. The Queen smiled faintly. And you promised you would. He closed his eyes. I broke that promise, she shook her head. No, you kept it. You came back, even if it wasn't the way I expected. A loud explosion shook the palace again. The lights flickered and dust fell from the ceiling. Ethan turned quickly, scanning the air. They're moving closer. We don't have much time. Then tell me the truth before it's too late, she said. What do they want from you? He hesitated, his hands clenching. They want control, he said finally. When they rebuilt me, they used my mind as a weapon interface, a bridge between organic life and artificial thought. I can connect to them, feel their commands. But if they control me again, they'll use me to destroy this planet. The Queen's breath caught. Then we have to remove it. The connection. It's not that simple, he said, shaking his head. The link is part of me. If you try to cut it, I might not survive. She stepped closer until her face was inches from his. And if we don't? Everyone dies. His lips parted slightly, and for a moment, he looked at her, really looked, the way he used to, when the universe was quiet, and the only thing that mattered was the two of them. You haven't changed, he whispered. She smiled sadly. Maybe because I never stopped waiting for you. Another explosion echoed, this one closer. Ethan moved instinctively, wrapping his arm around her to shield her from falling debris. The warmth of his body, the strength of his grip, it all felt so familiar, so heartbreakingly human. For a moment she allowed herself to rest her head against his chest. Ethan, she whispered, promise me you won't disappear again. He said nothing for a moment. His voice, when it came, was soft and full of something she hadn't heard in years. Emotion. I don't make promises I can't keep anymore. Before she could reply, the sound of footsteps filled the hall. A young scientist rushed in carrying a data pad. Your Majesty, we found something. The origin of the signal controlling the drones. It's not from the fleet. It's coming from inside the planet. Ethan's head snapped toward him. Inside? The scientist nodded. An old war bunker, one of the Queen's research facilities. The energy signature matches your neural code. The Queen's face went pale. That's impossible. Those labs were destroyed years ago. Ethan turned to her, realization dawning in his eyes. No, he said slowly. They weren't destroyed. They were hidden. What are you saying? She asked. He stepped back, his expression darkening. They're using your old science, Your Majesty. The same program that made me. Her chest tightened. Project Helios, she whispered. He nodded grimly. It never ended. The Queen covered her mouth, her heart breaking with guilt. She had ordered those experiments long ago. Desperate to create peace through strength, she thought they were all gone. She thought she had buried her sins with Ethan's death. I did this, she whispered, tears falling. This war. You're suffering. It's my fault. Ethan took a step closer, his voice gentle. No, you tried to save your people. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with pain. And I destroyed the only man I ever loved. He shook his head slowly. You didn't destroy me. You gave me something worth coming back for. For the first time since his return, Ethan's eyes turned fully human. Brown, warm, alive. He reached out, his hand trembling slightly, and brushed a tear from her cheek. Don't lose hope yet, he said softly. If there's still a chance to end this, I'll take it, no matter what it costs. The Queen looked at him through her tears, her voice barely a whisper. Just promise you'll come back again. He smiled faintly, that same old smile she had dreamed of for years. I'll try, my Queen. And then, before she could say another word, he vanished into the night, following the trail of smoke and fire toward the ruins of the old laboratory where the ghosts of the past waited for him. But as she watched him go, the Queen of Alaris felt a terrible truth burning in her heart, that this time, the price of love might be the end of both their worlds. The night on Alaris had never been so silent. The stars above the palace burned faintly behind a veil of dark smoke, and the air tasted of metal and ash. The Queen sat alone in her private chamber, her golden crown resting beside her on the table. Her eyes were fixed on a small hologram, a glowing image of a younger Ethan, smiling beside her during the peace treaty celebrations so many years ago. Her hand trembled as she touched the projection. You used to laugh, she whispered. You used to be so alive. The door slid open quietly. Her chief scientist, Dr. Aaron Vale, stepped inside, his face pale. Your Majesty, I found something, he said, holding a data drive. It's about Project Helios. The Queen's heart froze. I told you never to speak that name again. I know, Aaron said quickly, but you need to see this. He placed the drive into the console, and the room filled with old files and blueprints, experiment logs, genetic scans. Among them appeared an image of Ethan, not as a soldier but as a test subject. his body surrounded by bright rings of light. The queen covered her mouth, unable to breathe. No, this can't be real. Of the experiment before he disappeared. His DNA was compatible with the alien energy core. He was the key. She stood slowly, her eyes wide. Key to what? To bridging both species, human and Alarian, Aaron said. Project Helios was meant to create peace, a living connection between worlds. But when it failed, we destroyed the labs. Or so we thought. Her voice cracked. You mean, they continued it without my knowledge? He nodded. Someone rebuilt the program at Offworld. The same faction that took Ethan. The queen turned toward the window, her reflection trembling in the glass. All this time I believed I was saving him. But I was the reason they made him a weapon. Aaron's tone softened. He's not beyond saving, my queen. But the link between him and the AI fleet must be cut, soon. The longer he stays connected, the less of him will remain. She closed her eyes. And if we break it? It could kill him, Aaron admitted. But if we don't, they'll use him to destroy Alaris. A long silence filled the room. The queen pressed her hand against her heart, her thoughts tangled between duty and love. Then I'll do it myself, she said at last. If I must lose him to save my people, I'll carry that pain. But before Aaron could respond, the lights flickered. A low hum filled the air. The console glowed red in a transmission signal. The hologram changed, revealing Ethan's face. He stood in the ruins of an old laboratory, dust and broken glass all around him. The soft blue glow from his veins lit the shadows. His voice came through, low and steady. Your Majesty, I found the core. Ethan, the queen whispered, moving closer to the screen. You shouldn't have gone there alone. I had to, he said, glancing around. This is where I was reborn. I needed to remember what they did to me. His hand brushed across a cracked console. The image flickered to show the Helios symbol, a sun splitting into two halves, one human, one alien. They used both our DNA, he said quietly. Yours and mine, the queen's breath caught. Mine? Yes, Ethan said. Your blood holds the ancient Alarian energy that powers the royal line. That's why they chose you. That's why they needed me, a human strong enough to carry it. Her knees weakened. She grabbed the edge of the table for support. Ethan, I never knew. I would never have allowed. He looked at her through the screen, his voice softer now. I know, you would have stopped them. That's why they lied. They told me you were gone. Her eyes filled with tears. And now you're trapped between us both, human and alien. He nodded slowly. Half of me wants peace. The other half only knows war. The room shook suddenly. Aaron glanced at the monitor. They've locked onto his signal, he shouted. They're tracing the transmission. Ethan, cut the connection. The queen cried. He hesitated. Not yet. There's something I need to tell you. Please, she begged. They'll find you. I remember, he said softly, cutting her off. The last night before the battle. You told me to come back alive. You said you'd be waiting under the stars. Her lips trembled. I never stopped waiting. For the first time since his return, Ethan smiled. Faint, human, warm. Then I'll find my way back again. But first, I have to end this. Before she could respond, the transmission cut off. The hologram blinked out, leaving the room in silence. Aaron slammed the console. He's gone offline. They found him. The queen turned to him, her eyes burning with determination. Prepare a ship. I'm going to him. Your Majesty, that's too dangerous, and I don't care. She snapped, her voice trembling. He fought for me when everyone else ran. I will not leave him to die alone. Aaron hesitated, then bowed. As you command. Moments later, the queen walked through the palace corridor, the echoes of her footsteps following her like ghosts. Outside, the sky glowed red with enemy ships breaking through the clouds. She didn't look back. As she entered her transport craft, she whispered to herself, Hold on, Ethan, I'm coming. Far across the burning plains, Ethan stood in the ruins of the Helios lab. Around him, shattered glass reflected the blue light pulsing through his veins. He looked up at the stars, but at the planet he once saved, at the queen he could never forget. And in that moment he felt something, a spark of warmth, faint but real, calling to him through the chaos. Her voice, soft as a memory. Don't disappear again. He closed his eyes, whispering into the dark. I'm trying, my queen, I'm trying. Then the ground trembled. And from the shadows, the first of the AI soldiers emerged, cold, silver, and merciless. Ethan clenched his fists, the light in his veins blazing brighter. The past had found him. And this time he wasn't running. The sky of Elaris burned red as enemy ships broke through the upper atmosphere. Fire rained down like falling stars, and the once peaceful capital turned into a field of chaos. Sirens echoed through the air. The Queen's palace trembled, its shining towers cracking under the shockwaves. The Queen stood inside her transport craft, gripping the armrest as the engines roared. "Faster," she commanded, her eyes fixed on the distant horizon. "We're heading to the Helios ruins." Her pilot, a young officer trembling with fear, looked back. "Your Majesty, that's a restricted zone. No one returns from there alive." "Then I'll be the first," she said coldly. Behind her, Dr. Aaron worked at a console, trying to intercept transmissions. "I'm picking up a faint energy pulse," he said. "It's him." "Ethan's fighting alone." The Queen's heart clenched. Then we're out of time. Far below, in the ruins of the Helios facility, Ethan stood among the smoke and destruction. His armor was torn, his skin glowing with bright blue veins of energy. Around him, mechanical soldiers advanced, tall, sharp, and emotionless. Their red eyes blinked in perfect rhythm. Ethan's voice was low and steady. "You want me?" he said, his eyes narrowing. "Come and take me." The first wave charged. Blades whirled. Gunfire exploded. Ethan moved faster than any human should. His strikes a blur of motion. When he hit, metal shattered like glass. When he leaped, the ground cracked beneath him. The energy inside him flared, half alien, half human. Raw power born from pain. But for every enemy he destroyed, 10 more replaced it. The machines surrounded him, climbing from the shadows like ghosts. A shot hit his shoulder and he staggered, falling to one knee. His breathing grew heavy. A voice echoed inside his head, cold, digital, familiar. "Subject Helios 1, it said. "Return to control. You belong to us." Ethan gritted his teeth. "I belong to no one." His veins glowed brighter, pulsing with light, but it was too much. His body trembled as the AI link tried to override him again. He saw flashes, images of the Queen, their last night before the war, her hand in his, her eyes filled with hope. Her voice whispered through his memory. "Promise me you'll come back." "I'm trying," he gasped, his hand pressing to his chest as the machines closed in. Then, through the dust and chaos, he heard it, a voice calling his name. "Ethan!" He looked up, and there she was, the Queen of Elaris, descending from her ship surrounded by guards and light. Her long silver cape fluttered in the wind, her golden armor gleaming through the smoke. His lips parted in disbelief. "No, you shouldn't be here." She walked toward him, fearless despite the danger. "You saved me once," she said softly. "Now it's my turn." The machines turned their attention toward her, their sensors flashing red. Ethan's eyes widened. "Run," he shouted. "They'll kill you!" But the Queen raised her hand, and from her palm a pulse of golden light erupted. The energy struck the machines, throwing them back like rag dolls. The ground rippled beneath her feet as her royal bloodline's power awakened, the same energy that had been used in Project Helios. For a moment, the entire battlefield glowed, half gold, half blue, her power and Ethan's resonating like two halves of a broken sun. Aaron's voice came through her communicator, panicked. "Your Majesty, the resonance levels are unstable. You're linking with him?" "I know," she said through gritted teeth. "It's the only way." She stepped closer to Ethan, placing her hand on his chest. The glow between them intensified. Their energies began to merge, just like in the experiments years ago. Only this time it wasn't forced. Ethan gasped as the pain faded. The AI's control began to break. "You're stabilizing me," he whispered. Her voice was soft but fierce. "You were never just a weapon. You were mine." The machines screamed in static rage and charged again, but now Ethan and the Queen moved together. When he struck, she shielded. When she attacked, he followed. Their powers combined, blue and gold lightning ripping through the sky. The earth itself trembled under their force. For the first time in years, they fought side by side. Not soldier and monarch, not human and alien, but equals. But even power has limits. As the battle reached its peak, a massive warship descended above them, black, silent, its energy core glowing with the same Helios symbol. Aaron's terrified voice broke through the comms. "That's the command ship. If it locks onto Ethan's signal, it'll absorb him completely." Ethan's eyes widened. "Then we end this now." He turned to the Queen, his voice low. "When I give the signal, you need to leave." She shook her head fiercely. "I won't abandon you again." He smiled faintly, blood on his lips. "You already saved me once, Your Majesty. That's enough." Before she could stop him, he leapt high into the air, energy surging through his body. He landed on the warship, punching through its hull with a roar. Sparks flew, metal screamed. The ship's energy core pulsed, unstable. "Ethan, no!" the Queen cried, running toward the wreckage. His voice echoed over the comms. "Tell them. I was never their weapon." The ship exploded in a blinding flash. The shockwave hit the ground, throwing the Queen backward. She screamed his name as fire and smoke covered the sky. When the light faded, the battlefield was silent. The machines were gone. The warship destroyed. Only ashes and glowing fragments remained. The Queen fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "Ethan," she whispered, "don't leave me again." For a long moment, there was only wind and silence. Then from within the smoke, a faint figure moved, burned, broken, but alive. Ethan stumbled forward, his armor shattered, his eyes dim but human again. The Queen ran to him, catching him as he fell. "You fool," she said, her voice shaking. "You almost died," he smiled weakly. "Would have been worth it, to see you again." She held him close, her forehead resting against his. "You came back," he whispered, his voice fading. "Told you I would." Above them, the sky cleared, revealing the stars, quiet and endless, just like the night they once shared. But in the distance, deep in space, another signal began to pulse, faint, rhythmic, alive. The war wasn't over, not yet. The night after the explosion was quiet. Too quiet. The city of Alaris lay in ruins, its towers cracked and burning, the sky still glowing faintly red from the fires of war. In the middle of the palace's medical wing, the Queen sat beside Ethan's bed. His body was still, his breathing faint. Machines hummed softly around him, glowing with a mix of blue and gold energy, his and hers, bound together by the strange fusion that had saved his life. She hadn't left his side in 2 days. Every few hours, she would touch his hand, whispering his name. "Ethan, please wake up." Sometimes she thought she saw his fingers move or his eyes flicker beneath closed lids. But he never truly woke. "Not yet." Dr. Aaron entered quietly, his expression tense. "Your Majesty," he said, lowering his voice. "I've been analyzing the readings from his vitals. There's something different happening." The Queen stood immediately. "What do you mean?" Aaron pointed to the monitor. "The human cells are regenerating, faster than anything I've ever seen. But the AI energy inside him isn't fading. It's adapting, evolving." Her heart froze. "Evolving into what?" Aaron hesitated. "Something new. Something neither human nor machine. I can't tell if it's a miracle or a warning." Before she could reply, the lights flickered. The air grew colder. The machines around Ethan began to hum louder, their blue glow turning white-hot. "Aaron," she started, but then Ethan's body arched violently. His eyes snapped open, glowing with light so bright the whole room shook. "Ethan," she cried, reaching for him. But a pulse of energy pushed her back. The glass cracked, alarms blared, and every metal object in the room began to vibrate. Ethan's voice echoed, not just through the air, but inside their minds. "They're here." And then as suddenly as it started, it stopped. The lights went out. The only sound left was his ragged breathing. When the emergency power came back on, he was sitting upright, staring at the floor. Sweat dripped from his forehead, his eyes now dim, flickering between human brown and cold blue. The Queen rushed to his side. "You're awake," he looked up slowly. "How long?" "Was I gone?" 2 days, she said softly. "You almost died again?" A weak smile crossed his lips. Seems to be a habit, but his expression quickly darkened. "They're not gone, Ariana. The AI, I destroyed their ship, but not their core. I can feel them watching." Aaron frowned. "That's impossible." "The Helios mainframe was obliterated." Ethan shook his head. "No, they moved. Into me." The Queen froze. "What do you mean?" Ethan pressed a trembling hand against his chest. "When the ship exploded, I absorbed part of its energy. I thought it would kill me, but it didn't. It merged with me. And now I can hear them, faint whispers giving commands I don't want to follow. He stood slowly, unsteady on his feet. The Queen instinctively reached out to steady him, her hand brushing his arm. "You're safe now," she said, but his eyes turned cold for a moment, the faint blue returning. "No one around me is safe." Her voice broke slightly. "You saved us, Ethan. You ended the war." He turned to her, pain in his gaze. "The war isn't over, Ariana. It just changed shape." He looked out the window where the burned horizon met the stars. "They're rebuilding, but not ships this time, but minds. They'll come back through me, through what I've become." The Queen stepped closer, her tone firm. "Then we'll stop them together." He gave a soft, bitter laugh. "You always say that like it's easy." "Because I believe in you," she whispered. Their eyes met, and for a moment all the noise, all the fear faded away. There was only them. Two souls bound by fate, by pain, by something neither fully understood. He brushed a strand of hair from her face, his touch gentle despite the faint hum of energy beneath his skin. "You shouldn't trust me this much," he said softly. She smiled faintly. "And yet I do." A sudden noise broke the moment, the palace comms flashing with a distress signal. Aaron rushed to the control panel. "Incoming transmission!" The screen flickered to life and a static image of a shadowed face. A voice spoke, deep and mechanical. "Helios 1, it said. "You cannot run from your purpose. The Queen's heart is your key. Bring her or we will take her." The message ended abruptly. Silence filled the room. Ethan's hands clenched into fists. "They know." The Queen's eyes widened. "Know what?" He turned to her slowly. "That your energy, your power, is the last link they need to rebuild the core. That's why they kept me alive. That's why I was sent back here." Her voice trembled. "Sent back?" He nodded grimly. "They didn't just let me escape. They wanted me to, so I could lead them to you." The Queen stepped back, her breath catching. "No." Ethan looked broken, his voice shaking. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't." She stared at him, torn between love and fear. "Then what happens now?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Now I fight them from the inside, before they can use me again." He looked up at her, his expression softening. "But if I lose control, if I become one of them," she interrupted, her eyes fierce, "then I'll bring you back just like you did for me." He smiled sadly. "You might have to kill me first." She stepped closer, pressing her hand against his chest, feeling the faint heartbeat under the metal. "Not while I'm alive," she whispered. The lights dimmed again. Outside, thunder rolled. Not from weather, but from the skies where a new fleet was arriving. Ethan turned toward the window, his voice low. "They're coming." And for the first time, the Queen didn't look afraid. She stood beside him, her golden eyes glowing faintly. "Then let them come," she said. "This time they'll face both of us." Ethan looked at her, and in that moment, despite the storm building beyond the stars, he smiled. "Together then. Always," she whispered. And as the first enemy ship broke through the clouds, the two of them stood side by side, human and alien, love and machine, waiting for the darkness to descend once more. The storm had returned. Lightning cut across the blood-red sky of Alaris as the enemy fleet descended again, larger, darker, more precise. Inside the palace command room, alarms wailed while holograms of battlefields blinked red. The Queen stood at the center, her golden armor glimmering beneath the flashing lights. Ethan stood beside her, silent. His eyes were fixed on the images of incoming ships, but his expression was unreadable. Calm. Too calm. Dr. Aaron worked quickly at a control station. "The fleet isn't just attacking, they're scanning us," he said, typing furiously. "They're searching for something. Or someone." Ethan's jaw tightened. "They're searching for me." The Queen looked at him sharply. "You said you severed the link." "I tried," he said quietly. "But it's not gone. It's hidden, deep inside. They can still reach me if I lose focus." A heavy silence filled the room. The Queen stepped closer, her voice softer now. "You won't lose focus. I trust you." Ethan met her gaze. Her calm confidence somehow steadied him even as the whispers returned faintly in his head. "Return to control. Bring her to us." He shook his head, trying to push them away. "We don't have much time. I can feel their signal growing stronger." Aaron looked between them. "If they're tracking him, then staying here is suicide. We need to move the Queen to a secure bunker." But the Queen's voice was firm. "No, I'm not running." She turned to Ethan. "You said this began with us. Then it ends with us." Before he could respond, the ground trembled. A deafening explosion shattered the far side of the palace. Guards rushed in shouting, "They've breached the outer wall." Ethan's instincts kicked in. "Stay behind me," he said, drawing the plasma blade from his back, the same one he'd used in the last war. Its blue edge glowed against his face as he moved ahead. The corridor was filled with smoke and light. Enemy drones hovered through the dust, red eyes scanning, firing energy bolts. Ethan sliced through them one by one, his movements sharp, perfect, mechanical. Too perfect. The Queen followed with her guards, her power flaring golden to deflect blasts. But as they fought their way through, she noticed something wrong. Ethan wasn't slowing down. His strikes grew more violent, his breathing heavier, his energy darker. "Ethan, stop," she shouted. "You're overloading." He didn't answer. His eyes glowed too bright now, flickering blue-white. The voice inside his mind grew louder. "Take her. Bring her to the core." He fell to one knee, clutching his head. "No, I'm not your weapon." The Queen ran to him, kneeling beside him as his body trembled. She held his face between her hands. "Look at me, Ethan, look at me." His eyes opened, but they weren't his. They were cold, empty. He spoke, but the voice wasn't his either. It was metallic, layered, echoing. "Target acquired. Initiate retrieval." Her heart froze. "No." Ethan's hand shot forward and grabbed her wrist, and not gently this time. The grip was strong, unbreakable. She gasped as blue light crawled up her arm. "Ethan!" she cried, struggling. "It's me!" He didn't move. His body stiffened like a puppet pulled by invisible strings. The guards aimed their weapons, but she raised her other hand. "Don't shoot!" Aaron shouted over the comms. "He's being controlled." "They're using the neural link!" The Queen's voice broke. "Then help me break it." Aaron's voice was filled with panic. "If we overload his system, it could kill him." "Then I'll risk it," she said fiercely. "He's not theirs." She pressed her hand against his chest again, pouring her golden energy into him. The light between them flashed, gold meeting blue, colliding, twisting. The palace trembled as energy waves rippled through the air. Inside Ethan's mind, a storm raged. He saw flashes. The battlefield, the experiments, the Queen's face, the stars where he had once promised her forever. And then another voice echoed. Her voice, warm and human. "Come back to me, Ethan," he gasped. The glow in his eyes flickered. The control began to fade. He fell forward, collapsing into her arms. His breathing returned heavy and broken. "Ariana," he whispered, voice trembling. I almost hurt you." She held him close, tears falling. "You didn't, you fought it." He pulled back slightly, guilt clouding his face. "I felt everything, but I couldn't stop it. They were inside me again. I don't know how long I can keep them out." Her voice was steady, though her heart ached. "Then we find another way. We always do." Before they could speak more, a loud rumble shook the palace again, this time deeper, closer. Aaron's voice came through the comms, frantic. "Your Majesty, they've activated the planetary gate. They're opening a portal above Alaris." Ethan's eyes widened. "That's impossible. The gate was sealed years ago." "It's powered by you," Aaron shouted. "They're using your energy signature to unlock it." The Queen turned to Ethan, realization hitting her like a blade. "You're the key, Ethan. They don't need to control you anymore. They already have your code." He looked horrified. "Then the moment I woke up?" "Yes," she whispered. It began again. Outside, the clouds tore open. A massive ring of light appeared in the sky, the Helios gate, pulsing, alive, feeding on Ethan's energy. The Queen looked up at it, her voice cold but calm. "Then we end this now." Ethan looked at her, torn between fear and love. "You don't understand. If I shut it down, I might not survive." She met his gaze, fierce, unshaken. "You told me once you'd die for me. Now let me live for you." For a moment, neither spoke. The light from the portal bathed them both in a strange glow. Two souls caught between love and destruction. Ethan finally whispered, "If this is the end." She placed a hand on his cheek. "Then we face it together." He nodded slowly. "Together." And as the portal widened, spilling blue fire across the sky, Ethan and the Queen of Alaris stood hand in hand, their hearts ready to fight the war that fate had written for them long ago. But deep inside Ethan's mind, a faint cold whisper remained. The moment you love her is the moment we win. The sky of Alaris was no longer dark, and it was alive with fire. The Helios gate hung above the planet like a wound in the stars, spinning faster, tearing space itself apart. Lightning of blue and gold danced across the sky as the portal grew wider, pulling everything toward it. Air, energy, life. On the ground, chaos ruled. Soldiers ran through burning streets, people screamed, the palace walls cracked. But in the middle of the storm, two figures stood unmoving. The Queen of Alaris and Ethan Cross. The Queen's golden armor glowed faintly under the strange light. Her long silver hair whipped in the wind. She looked at Ethan, who stood a few feet away, his body trembling with energy that wasn't his own. His veins pulsed blue, his eyes flickering between human warmth and machine cold. She could see it, the struggle inside him. The AI was trying to take full control. "Ethan," she called softly, "you're still here. I can feel you." He turned slowly, his face pale but determined. "They're using me, Ariana. Every second the gate stays open, more of them come through. I can hear their voices, thousands of them, calling my name. Then we close it," she said firmly. "Together." He gave a weak smile. "If we try to close it from here, it'll kill anyone nearby. You need to leave." She stepped closer. "Don't ask me that again." He sighed, a mix of sadness and love in his eyes. "You've always been impossible. And you've always come back to me," she replied softly. The ground shook violently as a beam of light shot from the portal, striking the palace courtyard. A massive figure descended, a humanoid machine made entirely of energy, its voice echoing across the city. "Helios 1, it spoke, cold and emotionless. Return to your purpose. Deliver the Queen. The new world begins now." Ethan's jaw clenched. "You'll have to kill me first." The being tilted its head. "Then so be it." The ground split open as smaller drones poured out, hundreds of them surrounding the palace. The Queen summoned her power, her hands glowing gold. "Ethan, go for the core." "I'll hold them off." "No," he said firmly, stepping in front of her. "We do this together." They exchanged one final look, a silent promise, then turned to face the enemy. The first wave hit them like a storm. Energy bolts exploded around them, but Ethan moved like lightning, and his blade cutting through metal and light. The Queen fought beside him, her power forming shields and golden blasts that tore through the air. For every enemy they destroyed, two more appeared. But they didn't stop. They couldn't. Then the giant being moved, raising its massive arm toward the Queen. A pulse of energy struck her chest, throwing her backward across the courtyard. She hit the ground hard, her armor cracking, blood staining the crystal floor. "Ariana," Ethan shouted, his voice breaking. He ran to her, dropping his weapon. She was breathing weakly, but still alive. She opened her eyes, tears mixing with dust. "Finish it," she whispered. "Don't let them win." He shook his head. "Not without you." She reached up, her hand trembling as she touched his cheek. "You were never their weapon, Ethan. You were my heart." Her words cut through the noise, cutting deeper than any wound, and in that moment, something inside him changed. The blue light in his veins turned white. The mechanical whispers stopped. For the first time, he felt silence, peace. He looked up at the sky, at the gate pulsing above. "If it's me, they need to keep it open." He looked down at her, his eyes soft but full of sorrow. "Then I'll take it with me." The Queen's eyes widened. "No, you can't, you'll die." He smiled faintly, brushing a tear from her cheek. "Then I'll finally keep my promise, to protect you no matter the cost." She shook her head, tears falling freely now. "Please, Ethan, there has to be another way." "There isn't," he whispered. "But maybe. This is how it was always meant to end." He leaned down and kissed her, slow, gentle, and full of everything they never had time to say. When he pulled back, his eyes glowed brighter than ever. Then he turned toward the portal. Energy swirled around him, pulling at his body like a storm. He began to rise, floating upward toward the gate. Arcs of light shot from his hands, connecting him to the sky. The AI's voice screamed through the air. "Helios 1, stand down!" But Ethan only whispered, "I'm not your Helios. I'm human." And then he unleashed everything. A blinding flash erupted, blue and gold light mixing in a storm of fire. The portal cracked, then shattered, sending waves of energy across the stars. The shockwave tore through the battlefield, destroying every drone, every ship. When the light faded, the sky was clear. The gate was gone. Silence fell. The queen slowly opened her eyes, the golden glow around her dimming. The battlefield was quiet. The palace stood broken but still standing. She looked up, searching the sky. There was no sign of him. She stood weakly, her heart pounding. Ethan? Nothing. Just wind. Tears fell down her cheeks as she whispered, "You promised." Then faintly at a soft sound behind her. She turned. A figure lay among the debris, burned, broken but breathing. Her heart stopped. She ran to him, dropping to her knees. His body was scarred, his armor shattered, but his eyes opened slowly, brown, human, gentle. He smiled weakly. "Told you. I'd come back." She let out a shaky laugh through her tears, pulling him into her arms. "You idiot," he coughed softly. "You love this idiot." "I do," she whispered, holding him tighter. More than the stars themselves. He closed his eyes, resting his head against her shoulder. "Then maybe we finally won." The queen looked at the rising sun through the ruins, soft golden light spreading across the land. The war was over. The machines were gone, and for the first time in years, peace returned to Alaris. She held him close, whispering softly, "Welcome home, Ethan." His hand found hers, their fingers locking together, a promise renewed under the morning light. And though the world would remember him as a legend, to her, he would always just be the man who saved her. Twice. The human who defied fate. The soldier who fell in love with a queen, and the hero who turned darkness into light.